What is going on, dudes and lady dudes? Welcome back to Just Nuts, guys. Today, I've got a deck profile. I know it's been a minute. I know I say that every time, but deck profiles are harder to do than I thought. I don't want to just give you guys garbage deck profiles that I don't feel comfortable in, that I don't think I'm doing you guys justice. I want to give you something that I feel good in. And today, I have a Magical Musketeer deck profile for the new format post the January 2020 ban list, because a lot of things get shaken up on this new ban list, and I think this is a list that wants to capitalize on that, because this was one of, out of all the like quote unquote rogue decks, this deck might have topped more than any other rogue deck in the last format. And now that the top 4 decks have all been either beaten brutally on the ban list or nerfed, this deck has an interesting situation where it may be able to capitalize on. So without further ado, let's get into it. So we're going to start off with the monsters here as per usual. All right, so we'll start with 3 Caspar, 3 Starfire, 3 Kid Brave, and 2 Doc. Now, there's a pretty standard monster lineup as far as Magical Musketeers tend to go. Here, if you don't know what they do, they all do kind of the same thing, but a little bit different. They all have the very same first effect, where while they're on the field, you can activate Magical Musketeer or Magical Musket spells and traps from your hand whenever you want. So it makes traps activatable from hand on yours or your opponent's turn, and same thing with the quick play spells, which is very, very nice utility because they cover a wide area, the spells and traps do. So other than that, they all have this another effect where if a spell or trap is activated in the same column they're in, they get an additional effect that will plus you in some way. So Caspar is the best one. He will get you a search any Magical Musket card from deck. Starfire will special summon another Magical Musket monster straight from the deck. Kid Brave will let you discard a Magical Musket card to draw 2. That can be very important with heavy monster hands. And Doc lets you get a Magical Musket card back from grave. He's the slowest one and also the worst one to open with, but going second he's fine. And we also have some other cards that can help opening him make that a little bit better. But that's it for the monster lineup. Super standard there. That doesn't really need to change. For the rest of the monsters, I'm playing 1 Archfiend Eccentric and 3 Ash Blossom Enjoy Spring. I don't need to talk about Ash, that makes sense, but I do want to talk about Archfiend Eccentric real quick. This is a really nice utility card. So first things first, it is a pendulum monster, so you can activate it in scale, and in scale, its effect is you can target 1 spell or trap card your opponent controls and then destroy this card in scale and that card as well. So it is just spot removal there. Because it is a pendulum, when it's activated, it does count as activating a spell. So you can summon a Musketeer to one of your zones that or one of your columns that is in the same as one of the pendulum zones. Then you can activate it, get a search, get a plus some way, and then have backward removal. And also keep in mind, its effect on field is that you contribute itself to target a monster and destroy it. So it can also be spot removal of monsters. The last thing is it is a light level 3 fiend. We'll get to why that is relevant in a little bit. And then obviously I said Ash already, but that is nothing crazy. Moving on, we move to the spells. We've got 3 Magical Musket Cross Domination. I guess we'll do this all at once. This is the only spell I play. I don't play Steady Hands. It's just kind of mediocre, just Battle Trap. This guy makes one opponent's monster 0 attack, 0 defense, and negates his effects until the end of the turn. Very, very strong card. Also, it does target the whole deck target, so that can't be a problem, but we'll address that in the extra deck and how we can handle that in certain ways. But insanely good and searchable disruption card there. For the rest of the spells, we've got 3 Desires and a Upstart Goblin. This is your draw power here. I know some people don't like 3 Desires in a 40-card deck, but this card is a +2 almost every time you activate it. I don't care if it's hardest return. I don't care if you have the risk of drawing into another one. If it's a +2, I'm playing it at 3. I don't care. Like, it just is what it is in this deck. And then Upstart, obviously. I don't really like playing Upstart in decks that can't have synergy with it, but this one does because it can just trigger a Magical Musketeer's effect by activating in the same column, which is nice. And it just gives you a little bit of consistency boost. And then rounding out the rest of the spells, we have some utility cards, 2 Ties of the Brethren, 2 Instant Fusion, 2 Cosmic Cyclone, and 2 Called by the Grave. So really, I liked all these cards, but I just don't have space to play them all at 3. So Ties is a really, really strong card going first. Again, it's actually kind of a +2 card just like Desires is, but it can be really tough to resolve going second. So I didn't want to go all in on it. Plus, it's like huge Ash bait. You pay life points for it, which can be brutal and stuff. But I did like it at 2 because if you resolve it going first, like you're just flying. It makes Doc better opening up because him and Doc is really good there. And then also keep in mind that Archfiend Eccentric Archfiend, is also a level 3 Light Fiend. So you can just Ties of the Brethren into that if you already desired and banished both of your docks, or happen to just like really unluckily banish Caspar or all 3 Kid Brave, and you'd still be able to resolve it as long as you had Archfiend Eccentric still in the deck. So still good there. Instant Fusion, just spot removal, and it can be activated going first. Why not playing Mind Control in the main? I would probably play Mind Control in the side, both copies of it, just because going second could be really good, and like Thunder Dragon's not as huge a problem, and that was like the best deck decided against. Cosmic Cyclone is just good spot removal for Spell and Traps, and then Called by the Grave. You do have a couple situations where getting a hand trapped is really brutal. Sometimes you just don't want to get hand trapped on Desires. Sometimes getting hand trapped on Ties of the Brethren is brutal. Stopping Ash on that is really good. And then sometimes you just have hands where you're trying to search with Caspar, and if it gets hand trapped, your hand is like really, really cheeks. So it comes up, but I didn't want to go all in on all. Well, I kind of did want to go all in on all of them, but we just don't have space in the deck to go that far in on them. So we're kind of just playing an array of it so that we can cover our bases, hopefully, with whatever situation we're in. Then for the traps, the Magical Musket traps, we've got 3 Desperado, 3 Last Stand, 1 Dancing Needle, and 1 Crooked Crown. These are also really good. I mean, a lot more here, a lot more traps than you do just the one spell, but they're all really good. Desperado is essentially Dryad. You get to target a face-up card your opponent controls and destroy it. Really good disruption and spot removal. Last Stand can negate the activation, or I think it's activation or effect. Nope, it's just the activation of a spell or trap card. You can just negate it and destroy it. That's really good for stuff. Evenly matched doesn't really matter, but there's stuff like Mind Control is like really brutal against you. Certain spell cards, just power spells, like a lot of decks just have like power spells and stuff. And then trap matchups really good as well. Other than that, Dancing Needle lets you banish 3 cards from your opponent's graveyard. I know Strikers aren't there anymore, which this card was really good against, but against Orcus and Sally's are still in the game, and so this is really good against them. And I figured it'll be a good one-of for a lot of different matchups, so might as well play it. And then Crooked Crown lets you special a Magical Musket from hand, so if you do open a really heavy Musketeer hand, this can help unbrick it, and also you can just activate it in the same column as a Musketeer just to get an effect off. Like if you just need a Caspar search or need to get Starfire to special turn 1 or turn 0, you can just get that off just to at least like help turbo you through, which does come up. And the last 2 cards are just 2 impermanents. Just to pair with Ash, if you do have to go second, if you do lose the die roll, you have 5 hand traps to hopefully hit something. And also you can just set this in the columns of Magical Musketeers you want to trigger on your opponent's turn, and just extra disruption. It's a good card, good like mid-range card, just negating effects. There, so that's the main deck. 40 cards. As always, I always like to play 40 cards in a deck where you kind of just have to hard draw your normal summons, which we have 11 of, so I'm not really messing around. I don't want to mess up like consistency with that. For Link 1s, we got 3 Max and a Link Karibo. Nothing too insane here. Max is just it's so wild. Like so wild. If you don't know what he does, if you link summon into him, he's a Link 1 by the way. Takes any one Magical Musket monster. If your opponent has spells and traps, you can either choose spells and traps or monsters, and then you either special summon Magical Musketeers straight from your deck up to the number of spells and traps your opponent controls with different names. Your Musketeers have to have different names. Or you can just search Spell and Trap, Magical Musketeer Spell and Traps equal to the number of monsters your opponent controls. So one of this deck's problems was going second, but this deck now can play through going second way, way easier now with a card like this. You can plus so hard. If you can bait everything out and then go into this guy, you're going to be looking so clean. And then Link Reba's just there for instant fusion targets. Keep in mind, Gravity Controller comes out, and then also... what is it? Relinquished Anima is coming out in not too long. So then both of those could replace this. I'm not entirely sure which one is best in what situations, but I'm going to consider all of them and maybe see if I can make room for like having 2 of them or something and play Instant Fusion at 3. Because it's just so good. For Link 2 is just Phoenix and Security Dragon. You like to make these under max so that they are co-linked, so you get the redraw on the Spell and Trap pop or the just to set up a bounce, because a bounce is better than destruction almost always. For Link 3, just 1. This is Ningirsu. This is one of the only outs you play to something that can't be targeted by card effects or destroyed. It's good. I mean, like, I could have played Unicorn here, but I decided to play him just because that is such a huge weakness. Like, this deck, like, just possibly can't even beat Avermax or Master Endymion or the BLS link. Like, they're such threats. So this guy is unfortunately one of the few ways we can out that. So just got to kind of cover your weaknesses if you can. I figured like the difference in unicorn in that is like minuscule, but like enough where I'd want to play it. And then the link 4s. This should be Avermax. I just don't have one because I didn't buy it when it was $10. And then when it shot up, I'm just kind of now being stubborn. Just being like, damn it, I missed my chance, and now I'm just being stubborn that I don't want to buy it now that it went up. And then Boral Sword, you just make, this is how you just end games. And then you just go Avermax when you know you can't go Boral Sword for game. So you're just like, I might as well make something so I don't leave all these just like useless bodies on the board, but also something that's still a threat. So Avermax is like really annoying. Protects all your stuff from battle. He can't be killed by battle. He floats if your opponent does out him, and he can't be targeted or destroyed. So he's really, really strong. And then the rest is, well, all right, we'll show these guys first. Instant fusion targets, Thousand Eyes, and Millennium Eyes. Millennium Eyes does come up. Like I said before, like Called by the Grave, there are certain hands with like Cast Bar. If Cast Bar doesn't resolve to search, you may end your turn with like no disruption whatsoever. So if you're really worried about like particularly Ash or Ogre or something, you can go this just because it can save your play, at least set you up for, you know, 2 disruptions there, which is really good. And then this is just classic Thousand Eyes, go in second, just trying to take something, bait negates, or you're just going to start breaking the board there. And then for the last stuff, I do play super poly targets because I do side super poly. I think just because we're in a new format, I didn't want to go all in on super poly in the main or even in on it at all. So right now I'm holding it off to the side. I'm going to wait to see how the format shapes up. I believe Sally's and Orcus will still be there, but I didn't want to go all in. So I would play all 3 of them in the side for now until we know that it's a format that super poly can be mained and not like risk too much. Just because like you hear like stuff like people talk about how sub tears and like Altergeist are now going to move into tier 1. Well, super poly does nothing to them, so I don't want to get caught in game 1 just giving up free game 1s to sub tears and Altergeist because I'm bricking on super polys that I can't even like use against them, right? Like that'd be really annoying. These are just the basic ones. I took out Dragostapelia because Thunder Dragon's like pretty much gone. I'm playing Duplexer Chimera instead of Violet Chimera because even though Sally's might be here, I also think like Marine Cess players may come out of the woodworks because they believe like the meta decks getting hit may make an opening for them to be playable. I've heard Math Mechs are better than people think, like Code Talker type decks. And then also Adignisters are coming out, and I think those are actually underrated at the moment. Could be better than people think. I don't know how good, but maybe better. And then this is just randomly good against random stuff. If I can get lucky against the same decks this would work on and they put 3 on the board, this card will just win. If you resolve into this guy, you're probably just the duel's just probably over. Because not only is he ripping 3 cards, a 3,000 beater, but he also could just negate a special summon of a monster from the extra deck, which is nuts. So that pretty much rounds out the deck here. Like I said, as far as like side deck stuff goes, I'd probably play all 3 super poly in the side just because it's so good. We know Orcus and Sally's are still going to be there. I probably expect some other dark decks to be there, like Burning Abyss. People are excited about. Heroes play dark monsters and stuff. So that's doable. I think Spirals maybe super polyed. I'm not sure exactly what board they're aiming for just yet, but that's something you just need to do a little bit of research and make sure you have the target for. I think that's mostly it. I'd probably play 2 Mind Control, maybe just really powerful, like really just power hard cards in the side deck, like Nibiru and stuff, just in case you do play those hard combo decks. Going second, you don't want like super poly to be the only going second card you can draw versus them that like has a chance at getting through their board. So I think Nibiru would be good there. I think that's mostly it. There, guys, if you want to see more deck profiles from me, definitely subscribe to the channel. Let me know. Leave some comments down below. For sure, this is, and keep in mind, this is just my first iteration of Magical Musketeers into the new format. This definitely is not set in stone. This is just, we're early in the format, so this is like a more conservative list. We're playing like all those 2-ofs, but maybe if we learn that like Instant Fusion is like so busted, maybe I bump that up to 3. Maybe I start taking out Called by the Graves or one of my Cosmics, or maybe I just decide Ties isn't worth and I can just take out Archfiend Eccentric and stuff. I don't really know yet, but this is just a cool list I'm starting with, and then we'll have to see how it edits from there. So like I said, leave some comments. Definitely let me know if you have any thoughts on the list that you think I should edit in some way. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. As always, guys, subscribe to the channel. Peace. I love you. Have a good one.